Hello and welcome. My name is Laurel Dalton. I'm the Executive Director for T. Leroy Jefferson Medical Society. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for Black Fathers, Voices, Visions, and Vanguards. With us today is Dr. Adam Berry. He is an internal medicine medical director and urgent care physician, and we'll be speaking with him today about his perspective on Black fathers in medicine.
Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Adam Berry. Just like Laurel said, I'm internist, medical director, and urgent care physician in Palm Beach County. And just very glad you can make it today, especially getting perspective on Black fathers, especially that are in healthcare or providers as well during this crazy pandemic.
Thank you, Dr. Berry. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path and your family?
Yes, I can. Well, initially I'm born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Windy City, and moved here actually about 6 years ago. But initially from Chicago, Illinois. Both my parents are from there, and it's the type of thing where I got exposed to, medicine, well, not medicine, but just helping others at a really early stage in my life. My dad's is a retired ordained minister, United Methodist Churches, and so I got exposed to a lot of different cultures and really kind of helping others at an early age, and that's something that I think that's what kind of propelled me to kind of get interested in medicine. I always liked helping people, also in sciences as well. And that's one of the things that I got exposed to at an early age. And then I guess when I was about 8 years later, or about 8 years old, we moved up to the northwest suburbs and also just got exposed to different aspects and also different cultures. I mean, up there is actually predominantly a Jewish community. And, if you know anything about Chicago, that it's predominantly, there's a lot, Black in the south and west sides. And so that definitely was a transition, but I think it helped me because it taught me at an early age how to deal with others, a lot of different cultures, ethnicities, and I think that really helped to propel me, for a job as a physician, and really how can I relate to people of different ages, different races, and that's one of the good things I would say that kind of helped along that journey. And then I guess from there I ended up actually moving to Michigan for a couple years, in Lansing, East Lansing, Michigan. And that was definitely a different experience and a really good one at that time. It was just a good transition. And then moved actually back to Illinois, where I finished up high school, and then went to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign for college, so a lot of Illinois, and then actually ended up matriculating after that to Rush Medical College, as well as the African Lutheran General residency program. And so it was really good, got a lot of exposure. Chicago is one of those places that it's the third largest city. And you see a lot of different races, ethnicities. I know a little Spanish, and it kind of helped a little bit to relate to Latino population, and especially now I'm in South Florida, which is it's a very high Latino population as well. And I think that's really the biggest thing, really just trying to relate to others, really kind of put yourselves in their shoes. And that's one of the things that as a physician or just in general in life, that's something I've always looked at to overall to just kind of help not emulate, but just empathize with everybody else. And so, and in terms of just kind of me now, we actually moved here about 6 years ago. My wife is an ER doctor, Dr. Jerisa Berry, motivational speaker, best-selling author, you name it. And, just really overall, I guess, entrepreneur as well, just like me. And, we have two beautiful kids. I guess my daughter just turned 1, Max, and my son, Major, will be 3 in July. And so, of course, during the pandemic, it's been a lot to juggle, being a new father. But definitely, I'm really excited to be on this platform, and I really appreciate being here today.
Wow, that's very interesting. So you're from the Midwest, and then you have a family with 2 children. What role do you think fathers play in the family, and is that role a little bit larger for Black fathers?
I mean, a huge role, especially these days, with this pandemic, and then also what's been going on, unfortunately, the last 2, especially 5 years with the social injustice and lack of police reform, and just kind of value as Black men in society. That's one of the things that it seems that we've always had uphill to climb. And it's always just kind of one of the things that has always been tough is just always trying to, put your best foot forward, understand that, your journey through different things you go through is going to be harder, and not take it personal. Really just every day, just try to do your best, learn from your mistakes, not be scared to ask for help. And, as fathers overall, you should, I was really taught, especially through the Bible, that we should really kind of be the heads of our household, not make all the decisions, but ultimately just really be that pillar, that rock for the family. And just really kind of everything, like now, my mentality is different, I pretty much get up and it's all about my family. How can I put propel my family? How can, put them in the best light? And I think especially as a black father, that's what you really kind of are always trying to look at, and just making sure that, your family can always depend on you, despite what happens, and especially setbacks. So, yeah.
Right. So what do you think you're going to teach your children coming up in the world? What do you think some of the biggest lessons you think that you're going to pass on to them?
Well, I think it's really important before, in order to know where you're going, you need to know where you've been, right? And where your, family, your ancestors, can just us as proud black Americans or black people have been. And so it's really important to really understand, where they come from. And so I'm really big about, history. I was almost kind of a little bit of a historian growing up as well. And I think that's really important, that not to rely on what the textbooks are saying or in your, social studies classes and stuff like that, to really understand where we come from and what a rich culture we have and how much of a big contribution we've made to society, to America in general. And overall, to really kind of build up and just kind of have a self-awareness and just be satisfied and happy to be black. And unfortunately, a lot of the media and a lot of things, kind of negative stigma, I guess there's been a negative stigmatism on just us in general and black men, and how to dispel that. So that's the first thing. Really, I just, wish and pray that, they get a good job of really self-awareness and who they are, and really trying to surround them with different, either activities and programs that really kind of help to uplift that. And so once that occurs, then you can kind of help them understand different hurdles that they may run into, or also just say it's not really to not be afraid to ask for help, to come to us when we have a question, when we're concerned about something. I think overall, in general, I think our society, especially as well as black men and women, we're very proud, and we're really, afraid and apprehensive at times to ask for help. And so you're going through different things, and you're going through on your own, versus really, and it's so much harder to go through tough times and setbacks on your own when you have people there for help who can help guide you. And it just, takes a village, to raise a child. And that's one of the things too. So despite your family, also, people who, other mentors, other people, of color and also not of color, that can also offer advice to help you along the way. And that's one of the things I look at some of my, either colleagues or other friends who have kids and a little bit older. I'm like, man, how do you do this? This is crazy. You're not, especially early on, you're not really getting sleep. You're trying to help out with your wife, and there's no textbook that can really prepare you as being a successful father. And it's tough. I mean, I don't know any father who just comes out like just perfect at all this stuff. It's really like a trial and error process. But really appreciate the journey, because I feel that we've had some setbacks also, starting our family, and so you really appreciate the small things more so. Yeah.
Okay. Who are some of the people that you look up to, or that you have admired their careers or the way they work with their family, or people like that?
Well, definitely I would say like Barack Obama, the ex-president Barack Obama. It was one of those things where that was just pressure at the highest level, and him and Michelle were always just so graceful at everything. They always took the high road. And it's just, I always try to put myself in their shoes, like, how do they able to do it and just still, have passion, have swagger, but then also really educated, and then also how to instill that in your kids. I mean, that's the other thing I think some of, especially is in the medical field, or law, or anything that's a lot of education, really hardworking and perfectionistic at times to a fault. And you want to instill that work ethic in your kids to the same way that your parents helped to do that with you. And that's one of the things that's it's really tough to find those. And I guess in terms of others, I mean, it's hard, I don't have a whole lot that come to my mind offhand.
Sure. Anyone in medicine specifically?
Yeah, I definitely,
Okay, you can think
I would say
about it.
definitely Dr. Yosemite. That's one thing I would say
really?
definitely.
Doctor.
I mean, he just always, I think, I really always looked up to him, especially since I moved here. He just always has an even kind of keel about himself, despite what goes on. He is just always graceful under fire. And
Dr. Olayemi OCME, the infectious disease physician.
yes, because it's almost like I don't know how he has time to do all the stuff that he does, but he's always there. Like if I had a question about something or a concern, he'll still get back to me in a reasonable time. I'm just like, so, but my thing is always pray and ask for just, I would say multitask, how to multitask as a black father and just do better at that, because you have so many responsibilities, and then before you're a father, and then as a father you're having more, and really kind of look to those people, how do they do that. Definitely also Dr. Carl Michelle is another one who look at and it's really tough. He has his own practice. He's got four kids now, I believe, and how do they I guess handle everything and almost just kind of, I guess, kind of not reinvent themselves, but ultimately, balance everything and just really
Life
how to
balance,
make
yes.
it go. And you really got to have a spouse or, I guess somebody that's really supportive in helping you through that process. So, yeah.
Okay.
So those are some that come to my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, how do you raise your children in a community that may target them in some way?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. I think one, it's important to really kind of self-awareness, know where they've been, and just to be one to really kind of understand the pride that they have, and just to really appreciate who they are. I mean, that's really important to understand. Their lives matter. I mean, it sounds cliche, but Black lives really matter, especially right now. And so, to not just take things at face value, or if they hear something on the media or TV, you name it. And so that's a really big thing. But then also it's important for us as parents or other, I guess, mentors, you name it, to just kind of reinstill that, to help them understand, there's a good chance you'll probably get in these circumstances. Or what if you get pulled over when driving as you get older? Or what if just how to avoid certain situations where, for example, that you'll be treated differently, or less room for error, in a sense, based on your skin color. That's totally out of your control, than your non-minority counterparts. And that's kind of one of the things that you shouldn't take. You shouldn't take that as a grudge or something against you. I think that's one of the things. Just embrace your ethnicity, but also really understand. The life's unfair, and that's one of the things, unfortunately, that you just have to deal with, and just deal with it gracefully, and just understand, my road may be harder, or I might have to go through more things, or I might be treated more unfairly based on my skin, but to not let that stop me, and that's really important.
Oh, I think so. That's tremendously important.
Yeah.
Your life is precious, and I think we're trying to make the larger community, the world, see that
Right.
It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. Life
Right.
still is super precious, and I really wonder how we bridge that gap and talk to people who might not see it that way, or they might think they're better than someone else or something over it because of the color of their skin. It really, I wonder how you tackle that problem. I think a lot of us are trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, just kind of getting back to your question about Black fathers in general. One thing too, as a new Black father, is I think it's really important that we uplift each other more, and really kind of reach out to the new fathers and be like, "How you coming?" Because it's so weird. It's so hard for us to call somebody and ask for help. It's just that pride in us, unfortunately, and really kind of help them help to uplift them. More so than, kind of not really tear each other down, but ultimately just to kind of help to reinforce, like, it's going to be okay, you got this, I was worse off than you were, and look where I'm now, or just any nuggets that really kind of help get through those tough times. And I think the same kind of thing, reaching out to other, either colleagues, friends, about, have you had this discussion with your kids about, as you get older, and what they may face, and how did you handle that? And do you have any advice on, how to talk to your kids and help them understand what they may have to go through, and, how the world may look at them unfairly, and, how to kind of get through that and, kind of go through those murky waters. So, yeah.
I think that's really important. I think sometimes we really feel alone in what we're facing. And then if you know someone is there that you can call, I think sometimes it's hard to pick up the phone and ask somebody for help.
That's the main thing, yeah.
So what are some issues that Black fathers face that some other fathers might not face?
Well, that's the thing about, I definitely say, just as a Black man in general, you're already having to have a more of an uphill battle just in life. You have less threshold, you're more scrutinized, you're more, I guess, there's more of a stigma overall. They just see Black and always assume like that you either, or no, he must be an athlete, or he must be in drugs or something. When especially they see a certain car or see you with certain how you carry yourself, and it's always like, I guess the, almost selling yourself short, or almost in a negative, I guess, light. And I think that's one thing that's really tough, just outside of being a father. And then as a father, you even have to even raise that level even higher, and you have more responsibility even on top of that. And so that's kind of one of the things that, how can I continually propel either my family or myself and reach my career goals as a father, as a husband, as be successful in my career, all these different platforms as a Christian, or what religion that you have. And so it's already hard enough in general, but then as a father, really kind of trying to put, look at yourself and, really, I think one thing also I'm really proud of, like my father, for what he endured, but then also there's small things that he did and I may have agreed with or not agree with, but really appreciate him being in my life. I think that's another really huge thing that, unfortunately, a lot of fathers aren't, I guess, in their children's lives. And I think you really got to appreciate any man who wants to stick in there and really kind of help raise their kids, even if they're not with the mother. And I think, unfortunately, in our society, we're, just not in our kids' lives to the degrees of other races. And I think that's a really big thing, to just uplift one another, but then also, really kind of help instill, and just, really appreciate that. And, it's hard. I mean, it's so easy to just give up. Okay, I'm out. Let me go move.
Right,
and unfortunately, that happens a lot. And just understanding and appreciate that. So I really appreciate my father for, him always being there. I might not agree with how he handles certain things, but that's one of the things, he tried. That's important to understand. At least they're trying. And sometimes, and it's not about money. It's not about giving your kids this and that. It's about those times just being there, physically there for them.
Right.
And so ultimately, as they get older, that, you want them to look back like my father was always there, for me. And that's ultimately what I'm striving for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's some systemic issues that have led to that. And then obviously there's some cultural, it might be, something that we see celebrities, they're, having multiple partners, or they're not raising their kids. And we see that in the media. I think it is something that we have to address in the culture, and then see what we can do to work to improve that. And I would think, to me, if my father wasn't present, I would want, and I was, a Black man, I would want my kids to have me in their life.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah. So I don't know.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I think you made a really important point. I think there's some systemic issues, and I think we see celebrities and people on social media that are I almost say hyping this lifestyle, or that it's kind of okay to not be in your kids' lives. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing. Sometimes I guess the impression is, okay, I give them money and I pay for this and I pay for that. And that's not good enough. Your kids want you to be there. They want you to physically be present. And so that's really the biggest thing. And, ultimately, it's so huge. I look at some of my either, friends or, people I've known when I was growing up and different things. And they could have, really seemed like really successful, and, they were going to be really, popular, all these different things. And, you see this how they can fall off the tracks easily. And you find out, like, wow. And the biggest thing is they haven't had really a good father figure in their life. And I think of a lot of the most successful people, even if it was type of thing where they were primarily raised by their mother, their grandmother, they had some kind of father figure in their life to really kind of help them understand. And I think even that father figure, even for women, is really important as they get older and try to become successful
100%.
mothers, or at least find a partner or like a lifelong partner, and really kind of what a good man is. I think unfortunately even that is kind of gets kind of spun out or just kind of twisted in a negative way, and just more of a materialistic aspect. Oh, you find a man with money and this, that, whatever, and it's way more than that. And just kind of understand, well, what kind of values really are you looking for? What are you trying to instill in your children? And so that's a really big thing. I think that we just need to do a better job. And instead of like pointing the finger at like what somebody wears or what they're driving or how they carry themselves, man, they're present. That's one of the things I've always respected, even of other cultures, that you look at two parents, for example. Sometimes in other cultures like Latinos, Indian, or even Asian, they have multi-generational families. And that's one of the things, when you look at them, both parents may have a minimum wage job, and how do they afford 4 and 5 kids in today's society? And it's so expensive. Everything is so expensive. But ultimately, they really work with each other. They, especially in their grandparents or whatnot, are there, different cousins, and you name it, and they really kind of all instill and become more of a village in helping them raise them. So I think that's one of the things we really need to do more of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah.
I think if you don't have a father, how do you know what to look for?
Exactly.
If you're a female, like, what do you know? You have your mom and your female figures in your life, but how do you know what to look for?
Right.
I think that's really important. How do you work to combat discrimination in your field?
That's really a tough one overall. I think because there's discrimination from other races, how they may view you, and there's discrimination within your own race. I mean, anybody in healthcare or in a lot of different professions can attest to that. Especially being a person of color, it's even harder because you don't see as many people in your classrooms, in your training, that look like you, and so you really feel like you're really on this pedestal, and if I do something wrong, they're gonna know it's you, because you don't like, oh, is this, they're gonna know it's you, and so you're already carrying that heavier weight, as you're going through your training. But then also sometimes, even within your own race, it's this crabs in a barrel kind of syndrome where, they've got theirs and you get yours, and not really kind of reaching back and helping to uplift, the next generation. That's the thing about it. All of us can attest there was somebody there in our lives that, really helped us as a mentor to get to that next level. And that's one thing you got to realize, that if there was somebody to help you, you need to be there for the next generation. That's one of the things why I like to volunteer as much as I can, and even platforms like the T. Leroy, how we really try to help with the community and education, and helping to get the next generation forward. And so that's one of the things that it's tough to really kind of do that. Sometimes you can get on different boards and different platforms. Whether it could be local level or more of a national level, as much as you can. But so that's always been tough to try to combat discrimination. But all you can do is otherwise just try to lead by example, understanding certain things out of your control, and try to just do the best you can, and still just I guess look at people as you can learn something from them. It's more of a glass is half full versus half empty kind of overall mentality, and just move, just take the high road as much as you can.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. And we really appreciate you at T. Leroy for all you do. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
How do you as a practitioner practice self-awareness when dealing with patients from other cultures?
Yeah, so that's one of the things, kind of getting back to that comment I made earlier. My father being a minister and being really active in the community, he was also Alpha Phi Alpha, fraternity incorporated as well. And he was just through all different, I guess, either organizations that he was a part of. He was really highly known in the Chicago area. Always just kind of giving back, and and that's one of the things that kind of helped me to see, like, wow, that how much that could be valued. And you're not really doing it for, notoriety or awards or this, but really because it's needed. And it's not enough of us to, as role models in our communities, and really kind of taking that with a lot of pride. Ultimately, that's, one of the biggest things I would say in terms of that. And
okay, so when you see a patient, they might not necessarily be from your culture, right?
Right.
So you have a Hispanic person that you're, seeing, or a white person that you're seeing. How do you treat that person at knowing that they might come from a different background? Maybe there's different understanding. Maybe there's a language barrier, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, what do you take into account? What do you do in those situations?
Yeah, well, that's getting back to my point I was making earlier. That's the thing about it. So I was fortunate that at a really early age, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, ethnicities, and that really kind of helped me to understand, like, you know what, we're more alike than we are different, despite what society says, like, oh, we're so different. No, a lot of us want the same things. We want in life, for our health, for our family to be healthy, ultimately successful, grow. That's the thing about it. We're so much more alike than different. And just kind of going into a new patient or a new situation, understanding that we have more things in common than different, it helps you to feel like you can get through any situation. And understand, we have something in common. Let me try to find what that is, because once you develop that rapport with that patient, they're more willing to trust you, more willing to open up to you. And especially as men, especially as a male patient, a lot of times the men who are my patients, it's almost like my wife twists my arm to come here, because we're, especially in terms of healthcare, we're just so reluctant to get healthcare. And from kind of what's happened in the past, and just with as black men, or men of minorities in general, that's one of the things also that I like to try to instill in my patients, and just kind of have that really kind of, you can be yourself, and and I'm going to treat you. I'm not going to treat you any differently. I want you to be yourself. If you've had a frustration with work or different things you're dealing with, let me know about it. But that helps me to relate to you. And so for me, when I see different races, that really kind of helps me understand, like, there's somebody who I may know that's really similar or has dealt with certain things, but then also respect cultural differences. I think that's important to also kind of respect differences in religion, differences in culture, and not like, oh, what is that, and kind of shun at that, but also look at, I might be able to learn something from this person, from their culture, from that difference. And I think if we go into every situation where I can learn something from, I don't care if it's a custodian, or someone, whatever, you can always learn something from everybody, no matter how much money they make or what they look like or what race they are. And if you have that mentality, I think that helps you to kind of always kind of see the bigger picture, and helps them to develop that trust with you as well as you with them.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you kind of answered my next question, which was, what would you tell another practitioner? Because ultimately we're all human, right? And so we all have struggles, and we're going through day to day. You might see a patient, you might kind of put them in I've seen this before. I'm expecting them to behave this kind of way.
Right.
How do you pull yourself out of that when you're kind of like, okay, I've seen this before, and you kind of you know what I mean? I'm just imagining that must happen.
And sometimes it's got to understand, and sometimes it may not be necessarily like how they are all the time. They may just have a really bad day,
right?
And and that's what you're getting, and they're like frustrated, they're taking the frustration out on you, and really kind of help them kind of get back to speed, and kind of get back focused, and and just kind of understanding that too, because we've had those days where it's just like nothing can go right. We call it Murphy's Law day, and just kind of understanding and having that, I guess, empathy for them, and just understand, they might be going through something that they're not telling you, instead of just kind of jump to the conclusion that they're, this kind of way, just having that sensitivity. And so that's one thing I can also impart on my other colleagues, that just also have another level of understanding that sometimes it might be something they're personally dealing with, and it's coming out with, your interaction with them. And to still always try to take the high road. At the end of the day, I always try to instill in my patients to really help them. I'm really big about teaching and helping them learn being the best, kind of I guess, patient advocate, well, being a patient advocate for them, but helping them to be invested in their health as much as possible. And so not just like, okay, here's your medical, here's the condition, here's the diagnosis, here's what's going on, but okay, what can you do to kind of learn more about it, to kind of treat it better, or just to, oh, here's some things you can maybe look at, or to try to understand more of it, because if you're more vested in your health, then you're going to take it more seriously. And and that's important. And ultimately, you have to be around for your family. That's the thing about it. I'm always like, okay, you can't go to work and provide for your family if you're not alive, or
Right.
you're in hospital, right? So I always try to put things in that perspective. Why your blood pressure is so important, why your diabetes, why your blood sugar, why different conditions are so important, because you have to be there for your family. And if there's something that you could have done to avoid this heart attack, this stroke, which your quality of life is totally going to change after that, then that's my job. And that's one thing I try to impart on them. And then otherwise, I can't control everything. And at the end of the day, I've done the most I can for my patient to really kind of help to try to put them, in the best light, or just have the best perspective on their health care.
Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Berry. Do you have any closing thoughts you have for our viewing audience?
Well, no. Ultimately, I feel, I'm just really appreciate to have this opportunity to be here and really just speak on, black men and black fathers overall in general. And I think that ultimately I'm just so glad that, Father's Day is coming up, but also just appreciating, those men who are, just really took the sacrifice to be in their life, to be in their children's life, as well as in the family. And ultimately, just appreciative of that, and just really uplift them. I mean, a lot of times, unfortunately, we get a bad light as black men and also black fathers, and just really just be more appreciative and just supportive of each other versus tearing each other down.
Very important information. Thank you so much for joining us today. Up next, we have Dr. Carl Michelle and Tovid Nishad, a school behavioral health professional.
Hi, my name is Dr. Carl Michelle. I'm a foot and ankle surgeon here in West Palm Beach, Florida, current board member of T. Leroy Jefferson Medical Society, where I currently serve as parliamentarian, health education, and health fair chair. And I'd like to welcome you today to this special on Black Fathers, Vision, Vanguard, and Voices. Along with me to start the discussion, I have Mr. Tovid Nishad, a school behavioral health professional, to discuss topics related to people of color today. Well, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Nishad. I guess the first question I have for you is for our audience, tell us about yourself, the work you do, and your family as well.
Hello, my name is Tovid Nishad, school behavior health professional for the Palm Beach County School District. I work with middle school age children working to address various areas of growth. I am from an Indian descent. My mother and father are from Bangladesh, but with the Indian inheritance. And I'm currently married with a 4-year-old son, and I've had the great pleasure of working with multiple families around the county, not only as a therapist, but as well as a tutor, and observed great impact on children due to various family dynamics with the mother and father present and cooperating with each other and helping our kids reach their full potential.
Wow, that's very interesting. In the introduction that you just did, we have something in common, because I'm also of immigrant parents. I immigrated here when I was probably about 15 years old, and I came here to this country as well. I know how tough it is to be in a new culture, to adapt yourself, and to actually learn a new culture. But that really has helped me be where I am today. As far as work is concerned, myself as well, being a surgeon and being involved in everyday life, and not only for my kids but other people that I see, is very important, because everything that we learn growing up, and we try to pass it on not only to our children but the patients and the people that we see as well, to help them reach their potential as well. As a person of color myself, or a black father myself, I take pride in doing that, especially people that are serving the community, the underserved community, that way. So tell us, with the kind of work that you do, what is the most important things that you see that needs to be changed from your perspective as a immigrant person, or as a person who grew up in a different culture?
That's a great question, Dr. Michelle, and I believe through education and modeling of how we react in various societal environment, we can teach our kids inclusivity, and through which they can grow and be a model citizen and be able to overcome various biases that are observed, and allowing them to understand various culture and be acceptance towards others. We can actually help the next generation be more positive and grow together rather than separate from each other.
It's interesting that you said that, because for me, and as a practitioner in my practice, I do see that as well. One of the ways I myself try to help those kids who are constantly targeted in their community is by being not only a role model, but to try to teach them by example, by action. One of the things that I do in my office is allow kids to come and see what I do, to kind of serve as a way to help them. For me, I have a bias in medicine, so I try to recruit them in the medical field as much as I can, by allowing them to come to my office to see what I do, talk to patients, so that they can see positivity with the staff, the people that are here, to know that they have people like them who are successful in society. So I try to teach them. I try to be there for them as much as I can. So in your field, in your perspective field, what do you think is one of the things that you kind of can do to help those kids be successful in their community, in a community that constantly target them in such a negative way?
So first and foremost, that's a great thing that you're doing, Dr. Michelle, modeling and allowing the children an environment to see how they can grow.
Right.
Especially working with children, one of the things that I primarily focus on is self-perception and self-awareness, allowing them to realize their strength and to also address their areas of growth through self-narration, because we all have our story for ourselves. Some of us, we are our own enemy. We tell ourselves various negative aspects to put ourselves down, to build them up through that self-awareness process, and allow them to realize multiple different paths that they can take to become successful and further advocate for equality. That's how we strengthen them from the inside, and so they can project that outward and be a better individual, not only for themselves and also for their community.
That's great. One of the things too, I would say that for me, a lot of issues that I see is trying to reach the parents as well, so that they can understand, to push their kids to do that. A lot of them don't have the means or education or the environment to do that. So for me, I try to also reach the parent to let them know how important it is to be in the kid's life, to help them. and to change the narrative, so to speak. What are some of the issues you see in your field dealing with the parents as well?
Very similar to what you have mentioned as well, and what I usually, when I speak with the parents myself, I like to have it more of a triangular of communication. The parents, the student, and myself included, because when we all communicate with each other, we can resort to a more positive outlook. So I try to emphasize the amount of communication we may have, as well as at various times hold family sessions when when it's available, or else keep in line of that communication and allow them to know, do not hesitate, let's work together, teamwork, and through which we could actually help the child, help the student, help the family grow together, not separately. Because one of the in various aspects, one of the things that I've observed is, due to the lack of communication, leads to misunderstanding, miscommunication, and falling apart of various family dynamics, and which has a significant negative impact with the child.
Yeah. Having an immigrant background, do you find yourself teaching those kids or passing on those kids that you encounter to respect other cultures, or how do you instill that in them?
Being from an immigrant parent, and of course, one of the things that I have observed is, even with my father, and myself included as well, it seems that there is a message that the fathers are absent in the family. But the truth of the matter is, it becomes twice as hard, at least for my father and even myself, as a practitioner in psychotherapy as well as tutoring. There's different opportunities that I did not have, but that I do have now to provide for my family. And having such misconception really does impact a child, that my father was not there, my father could not do this, but not realizing what their father has been doing. It's not an excuse, but it's a way to kind of bring them together, and also allow the child to share those emotions with the father, so they're able to understand. And this is something that I am learning myself. I've seen my father go through it, and I know my wife's been pushing me towards it, not to work as much, but allowing us to be a little bit more aware as a father, and a children to understand, would help us to come together and crush that misunderstanding and misconception that could be seen coming from an immigrant father.
I understand that really well, because in my household, it was prevalent, in my household, that the father, be present. Each of them have their own unique role, but my father really instilled that early in my childhood, to understand other cultures, to respect other cultures, having been an immigrant parent ourselves. So I try to instill that as well in my own kids, to do just that. A lot of times it's very difficult, because my kids were born here as well, so they have to also have that American culture as well. But as it's I think it's equally important to pass on what was passed on to you by your own family, and that will help them understand other people and respect other people from where they come from, and as well as being more understanding of what people are going through, and from their background, for their particular background. With that also comes a lot of discrimination, especially in the field, in certain fields that we are. We understand, it's going to be pushback in every way. In my profession, it is very difficult. I can remember in my residency having to work twice as hard to get the same recognition. Just being, a person of color, you get a lot of pushback. Studying or doing everything, I had to put in mentality that I have to really push really harder than the person next to me.
Correct.
So there's a lot of pushback and discrimination.
Right.
Do you find that in your field to have those pushbacks as well as from a certain point of view?
Yes, I do. Being an immigrant, and it has been quite challenging, even going through school myself. And some of the opportunities that have came to some of my colleagues very easily, I had to work twice as hard to get to some of the places that I am, and I'm still currently working through it. But it is also a blessing, and allowing us to be resilient, and showing that resilience to our children shows them that any and every challenges that may come up, we could address it with a proper plan, and allow them to see that hard work truly does pay off, so they're able to push forward as well.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something very interesting, the word resilience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we have to teach our young kids, to be resilient, to have a dream, and to really be persistent in doing that, and having to give them the positivity. I love this phrase of saying it takes a village. It literally does. If we teach our kids to be positive, be self-confident in whatever they're doing, I think that will help them. You should know more than I do, being a behavioral health, would you say?
Yes, I totally agree.
Okay. So, in speaking to that, what do you think, as a part of, I would say, do you see other cultures mostly as a mainstay in your practice, or is this a mixture of background?
I see mixture of backgrounds, specifically since I work with middle school age children. In my professional career as well as the business career, it is a mixture of backgrounds that I get, and different family dynamics, and
Okay.
and how may the children see their future and outlook.
Is there a certain culture that you have a different approach based on your interaction with different cultures? Is there a certain approach? Because I know different cultures are different. You have to
Right.
approach them differently. From a health behavior standpoint, is there a certain approach for each culture that stand out to you?
Yes, it does. First and foremost, I try to have a better understanding of the culture before working with the family, because I work with Indian, Bangladesh, Pakistani cultures as well for tutoring, as well as working with various other cultures in school, allowing myself to be more educated on how the culture perceives various aspects allows me to reach them in a certain way, and to be able to be more productive in addressing various areas of growth, some of which can, because through the parents' upbringing, they might be projecting things towards their children which could be different in certain cultures than others. So understanding where they are from, understanding their little bit background, allows me to practice well in addressing various concerns, and also various stigmas that may exist in my practice.
Yeah. One of the things personally that I see in my profession is the lack of access for people that are underserved. What I try to do a lot of times is to give them other opportunities to, whether it's from a charity standpoint to help them, or free clinic to help them as well. What are some of the barriers that you face in your profession as well?
Recently, it has been with technology, definitely due to the pandemic, and working with the school district. They have had provided all the students and everyone with a laptop, and telemedicine had been definitely helpful, and allowing the students to have internet access, that definitely addressed a lot of it. but moving further, even prior to the pandemic, allowing them to be much more aware of various community-based resources, help them access them, because in many cases, many family was not aware of what resources were out there to get that support. And by being able to be much more aware, they're able to reach out and further help not only themselves as well as to the community, because I'm a strong believer in sharing the knowledge. Knowledge is like a seed to a plant. If I'm able to share certain resources with one family, they share with others, then in large, that community is able to understand that there is help, there is support, there is ways to get to wherever you want to go, and would further make the community stronger and better.
That's great. And I feel the same way that you do, because a lot of times those families will come to my office and they don't have the means to even see a doctor or pay for surgery or anything like that. So I try to be understanding of that as well in providing them the care that they need and directing them to areas where they can be successful or prosper, if we want to say that, to be better than and where they came. And I think the education is the key. You nail it right on the head. Is educating those parents and those kids, and providing them the opportunity to learn and to understand that there are resources available for them, and they don't have to do it by themselves. And that's why myself and your jobs are very important in touching on that as well. You mentioned telemedicine. I know that a lot of households, they don't have even the internet or a computer to do that. How do you deal with that from your standpoint?
So from my standpoint, anytime I communicate with any families, I give them my direct cell phone number. So just in case they're not able to reach a video conference, they're more than welcome to call me, and I'm able to speak with them in regards to how things are. And I found that to be easier either through phone, email, or video conference when possible, so that way they could definitely reach out for services. The reason I did that is because in certain cases, yes, Wi-Fi goes down. Multiple things had happened, and if I met with them at least once or twice, whether it be in person or telemedicine, I can recognize their voices, and at the same time, since they reached out to me, not to go against any HIPAA. HIPAA, stay with the HIPAA guidelines, I'm able to communicate and address these concerns accordingly.
Oh, that's great. So to me, it sounds like you're doing really great work in our community, and we do appreciate your services to those young kids. I know they benefit from you just by talking to you and listening to you. I know they have a great help and great opportunities in that area. I want to thank you for joining us today in this talk. It is a very an important talk in our community, especially for our young colored kids that are growing in a community where they're seeing off the bat as a negative connotation, or having to surmount a lot of obstacles. I want to commend you for the work that you're doing. And is there any last comment and last thing you want to mention to our viewers that are listening to us today and have been in those situations? Maybe we can help someone and educate them in helping them, and as well as their families.
Sure. Coming from an immigrant family, and regardless of who we are, we all have some sort of biases and allowing us to know what those biases are and be able to be more educated of such biases, we can further grow personally as well as be able to see things from a different perspective, more positive perspective. And exactly what you said, Dr. Michelle, is that in many students that I've worked with, just because of their background and cultures, they're all seen different. They're not seen through various strengths. They're not seen through various capabilities just by how they look, just by how they walk. They're already being seen from a different different perception. So allowing us ourselves, each and every one of us, to be aware of our own personal biases will help us not only for ourselves but also with others to grow and have a more positive outlook for our society and our children who are looking to us to be the model citizen for them as they are learning every day.
That's great, and I agree with you. And to me as well, I think it's very important. And I try to instill in the kids, everything that was instilled in me as a young boy, right. Regardless of their backgrounds, right. Especially being black and in the community. It is very important to teach our kids to be self-confident, to have that push towards being better citizen and better humans.
Right.
I think it's very important, and I'd like to thank you for sitting down with me and having this important discussion. Hopefully our audience will understand, and we'll be able to reach them from a different perspective, knowing that you and I, being from different backgrounds, we have come to understand that it is very important to pour into our children from that perspective. Well, thank you, Mr. Nashad, for joining me today in such an important discussion on Black Fathers, our visions, and the Vanguards. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. This is a very important topic, and we hope that we did it justice today. We still have time, and we're gonna open for questions and answers if you have any, and we would like to hear from you, so that we can better help you. That's what T. Leroy Jefferson Medical Society stand for, and that's what we'll always do to serve our underserved community. We'd like to thank you again. Now, this is your time to ask all the questions you have, and we're here to answer them as best as we can. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for joining us today for Black Fathers, Voices, Visions, and Vanguards. I'd especially like to thank our panelists today, as well as Children's Services Council, for allowing us to put this program on. You can learn more about T. Leroy Jefferson at www.tljmedicalsociety.org. Thank you again.